The campaign for women's liberation never went away, but this year, a new swell built up and broke through. Since the early summer, I've been talking to feminist activists and writers for a short book, All the Rebel Women, and as I tried to keep up with the protests, marches and talks, my diary became a mess of clashing dates. The rush was such that in a single weekend in October, you could have attended a feminist freshers' fair in London, the Northeast Feminist Gathering in Newcastle, a Reclaim the Night march in Edinburgh, or a discussion between different generations of feminist activists as the British Library. This sold out in 48 hours, was moved to a room 4 times bigger, and sold out again. You could have joined one of the country's 149 local grassroots groups, or shared your experience of misogyny on the site. Laura Bates, 27, started in April 2012. Her Everyday Sexism project has proved so successful that it was rolled out to 17 countries on its first anniversary this year. Tens of thousands of women worldwide writing about the street harassment, sexual harassment, workplace discrimination and body shaming they encounter. The project embodies that feminist phrase, the personal is political, a consciousness-raising exercise that encourages women to see how inequality affects them, proves these problems aren't individual but collective, and might therefore have political solutions. This year, 6,000 stories that have been sent to the project about harassment or assault on public transport, the majority never reported to authorities, were used to train 2,000 police officers in London, and create a public awareness campaign. In its first few weeks, says Bates, the reporting of harassment on public transport soared. Everyday Sexism currently has more than 108,000 followers on Twitter. Of course, following a social media account isn't the same as joining a political party, but to put this engagement in perspective, Tory membership is now at 134,000. Welcome to the fourth wave of feminism. This movement follows the first wave campaign for votes for women, which reached its height 100 years ago, the second wave women's liberation movement that blazed through the 1970s and 80s, and the third wave declared by Rebecca Walker, Alice Walker's daughter, and others, in the early 1990s. That shift from second to third wave took many important forms, but often felt broadly generational, with women defining their work as distinct from their mothers. What's happening now feels like something new again. It's defined by technology, tools that are allowing women to build a strong, popular, reactive movement online. Just how popular is sometimes slightly startling. Girl Guiding UK introduced a campaigning and activism badge this year, and a summer survey of Mumsnet users found 59% consider themselves feminists, double those who don't. Bates says that for her, modern feminism is defined by pragmatism, inclusion and humor. I feel like it is really down to earth, really open, she says, and it's very much about people saying, here is something that doesn't make sense to me, I thought women were equal, I'm going to do something about it. As 2013 unfolded, it became impossible to ignore the rumble of feminist campaigners, up and down the country. They gathered outside the Bank of England in early July, the first burst of a heatwave, dressed as aviators, suffragettes and warrior queens, organized by Caroline Criado Perez, 29, shouting for women's representation on banknotes and beyond. Campaigners from Object and Turn Your Back on Page 3 protest outside the offices of The Sun. Photographed Leon Neal, AFP, Getty Images. They demonstrated outside the Sun headquarters, organized by Yasna Kati, 17, in a protest against Page 3, the biggest image of a woman that appears each day in the country's biggest-selling newspaper, a teenager or 20-something smiling sunnily in her pants. Nekati, a student at Sixth Form College, laughed shyly as she told me about the mocked-up pages she has sent Sun editor David Deansmore, suggesting feminist comedians, artists and writers to appear on the page instead. One of her favorites showed a woman flashing bright blue armpit hair. No More Page 3 petition started by Lucy Ann Holmes, 37, in August 2012, has been signed by 128,000 people. Ikumara Larasi, 24, started heading a campaign to address racist and sexist stereotypes in music videos, just as students began banning summer hit Blurred Lines on many UK campuses, in response to its sexist lyrics. Jinan Yunus, 18, co-founded a feminist society at school, experienced online abuse from some boys in her peer group. Feminism and rape are both ridiculously tiring, they wrote, and wasn't deterred. Instead, she wrote an article about it that went viral. When I spoke to her in September, she was juggling shifts in a call center, babysitting for neighbors, preparing for university, while helping out with a campaign to encourage feminist societies in schools countrywide. UK Feminista, an organization set up in 2010 to support feminist activists, has had 100 people contact them this year, wanting to start their own school group. In late August, their National Day of Action Against Lads mags included 19 protests across the UK. Thousands more feminists raised their voices online. Bates and Soraya Chamley, 47, were among those who set up a campaign against misogynist pages on Facebook, including groups with names such as "Raping a Pregnant Bitch" and "Telling Your Friends You Had a Threesome." Supporters sent more than 60,000 tweets in the course of a swift, week-long push, convincing the social media behemoth to change its moderation policies. Southall Black Sisters protested outside the offices of the UK border agency against racist immigration laws and propaganda, including the notorious "Go Home" vans. They also marched in solidarity with protesters in Delhi, who began a wave of demonstrations following the death of a woman who was gang-raped in the city last December. Protests against rape culture that soon spread to Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. The